tallest trees and why are they so tall? How tall do trees get? And why is water so important in understanding this? Well, let's first do a little tour through some of our largest trees on the planet with the aid of some National Geographic graphics. So here we have pictures of several record-setting trees with a human figure to scale. So a coast redwood of almost 116 meters tall. Mountain ash, or a eucalyptus, which is about around 100 meters tall. We have a Montezuma bald cypress in the background here, which is more than 10 meters in diameter. And then we have a giant sequoia, which is a record holder for the largest amount of volume in a main trunk. And then we have bristlecone pines, which are record setters in terms of being nearly 5,000 years old or older. The oldest known bristlecone pines have been even older than that. So trees can hold records in a number of different ways with regard to size. But height is one of these things that has really captured the imagination of tree physiologists and forest ecologists, understanding how tall can trees get and what's the limit to that. Here's another nice graphic depicting the heights of some of the tallest known trees, including, in this case, the tallest tree in the UK, an indication of how tall the Atlanta Space Shuttle would be. The General Sherman tree, which is a giant sequoia, which is known for being pretty tall. Big Ben, the clock Big Ben, obviously this is coming from the UK, and a mountain ash, and then Hyperion, one of the tallest known trees on the planet. And so, and then for scale, you can see there's Gemma, tallest human Homo sapiens on the left, and Jeffrey, a giraffe, in case having a human there was not enough for scale. So depending on the species, there are different height limits. And so some species are known for being the tallest trees. We're going to start our journey in the tallest trees talking about eucalyptus. Now, you'll hear about eucalyptus or mountain ash being the tallest tree in the world, but of course, eucalyptus trees are very diverse. This is a huge genus and, or actually multiple, it's a huge group of plants. And so we're not just talking about one genus, and we are talking about over 700 species that are commonly referred to as eucalyptus, gum tree, or the like. There are over 688 species just endemic to Australia of eucalyptus. The giant Eucalyptus regnans, is what we're referring to when we're talking about the tallest trees on the planet being eucalypts. These are broadleaf trees with evergreen leaves, but they're broadleaf evergreen leaves, so they're a little different than the tallest trees that we're used to here in the Northwest. There's a figure here for size, and this was a panoramic photo I tried to take in southeastern Australia a number of years ago now. But many of the giant eucalypts are probably lost, and so we'll talk about that in a second. Logging probably removed many of these trees before they were able to be measured. Just like in the United States, in the Pacific Northwest, Australia has a history of land use change that is associated with loss of forests to non-forest conditions due to logging. Maybe in some ways more striking than what we've seen in the United States, since in the United States we have a lot of forest land that's been logged, but maybe less forest land that's been converted into non-forest land on the net. So this is a map of changes in forest area just until 1980 in Australia, and you can see the yellow there indicating forest that was converted to non-forest conditions. Here's a more recent map of Australia not that much more recent, from 2000, so it's still getting a little old, long in the tooth here. But this is depicting forest types in Australia. And when we're talking about the tallest trees in the world, we're generally talking about trees that can only exist in temperate rainforest ecosystems. And the temperate rainforests of Australia tend to be in Tasmania or southeastern Australia. Much of this landscape looks more like this than a temperate rainforest now, just like in the Pacific Northwest of the US, we have a lot of our landscapes are clear-cut or agricultural. The bluish trees that you can see planted there are largely blue gum eucalyptus, a favorite timber species. And often the dominant eucalyptus trees that would harbor our tallest trees in the world have been cut and then replaced with this other more timber-friendly species. This species actually goes through an ontogenetic shift in its leaf morphology through time. You're actually looking at a single plant here, not two plants growing together. The dark green leaf and the light green leaf are actually the same plant, but when this tree is young, it produces the bluish green leaves, and then as it gets older, it produces a long, linear, more willow-shaped leaf. Historically, we know that there were giant Eucalyptus regnans in Australia. This is a historic photo that looks very similar to some of the historic photos in the Northwest of large cedars, large sequoias, large sequoia dendrons in the United States. So large redwoods, large giant sequoias, large cedars. Here's another image of loggers actively working on taking down Eucalyptus regnans in Australia. But the giants are still out there. This is an image of a person standing near one of the remaining Eucalyptus regnans at the ground. You'll notice the diameter of this tree is just immense. This is a wall of wood. This is in Tasmania. A region that is undergoing a lot of controversy with regard to logging activities of old growth eucalyptus. We're going to talk for a second about Eucalyptus regnans and the tallest known individuals. The tallest known individual tree is in the Andromeda stand in the Styx River Valley, where that photo we were just looking at came from, at 315 feet. The largest biomass eucalyptus, though, is thought to have been about 439 cubic meters, but it was accidentally killed in 2003 by Forestry Tasmania officials, by foresters in a controlled burn. The David Boyle tree was measured in 1862 at 390 feet. That would have been 119 meters, and that would have been the tallest that would beat out any of our tallest trees now. It had a broken top, and so the original height would have been even taller than that, maybe 420 feet, around 128 meters. We'll talk about that in a second. There's another tree, the T. rolla tree, where the date and location are uncertain. The height was measured at 410 feet. There are some other fallen trees that have been measured at around 400 feet. And then their trunks have sometimes been shown at exhibitions. The C. Walter tree in 1866 had a height of 390 feet. And the cornwait tree was measured by a surveyor where it was standing, and measured by the same surveyor after it was cut down in 1880. And its measured length after being cut was 394 feet or 114 meters. You'll notice a trend here, and the trend is that many of these trees aren't measured and figured out to be, potentially the tallest organisms until after they've been felled. Coastal redwood is currently our tallest tree, and we'll talk about those in a second, but they've been challenged even in the US. Not just by Eucalyptus regnans, which have been extremely tall. Some of those individuals we were just talking about would be the tallest trees on the planet if they're still around. But there are Douglas firs that could challenge the title that have been cut down in the Northwest. For example, 1895 in British Columbia, there was a tree that was 417 feet. Another one in 1905 was 415 feet, but it was cut down. Um, Multiple Douglas firs in British Columbia have been cut and measured at over 400 feet. A Douglas fir that was 393 feet was cut near Mineral, the town of Mineral, in 1905. And a Douglas fir that was 380 feet, 116 meters, keep that number in mind, was cut down along the Nisqually River in 1899. If that tree was still alive today, that would be the tallest tree on the planet. So right here in the Nisqually River near Olympia. But of course, this was cut. So what's remarkable about the redwoods is that some of our tallest trees that we know exist, they only exist because these trees were put into a reserve in kind of uh, a last minute effort to preserve redwoods. And so logging interests easily could have erased the tallest trees on the planet that we currently have, but they were preserved during Carter's administration. At 115 meters, Hyperion, at the time that I put this this slide together, Hyperion was the world's tallest tree, and it outranked the stratosphere giant 113 meters, which was the previous record holder. Note that that Nisqually tree would have been 116 meters, so heartbreakingly, that would have been the tallest. But the tallest tree records, keep in mind, these shift a lot through time, and they shift because one, trees grow. Two, trees break. And so the tops of trees can break off. So what was previously a record holder can lose its title due to breaking tops of the tree or death due to drought. We'll get to that in a second. Or trees can grow more, obviously, and attain highest, tallest tree status. In this case, the stratosphere giant just needs to do 2 meters worth of growth, or the Hyperion needs to have a small break in its top in order for the titles to switch. These are some images of researchers going up to measure water status in trees in order to determine what drives trees to be so tall. So now that we've gone through who the tallest trees are, in the next section, we're going to go through what makes them so tall, or rather, what limits their height. And we'll start by talking about the tree's physiology. How do trees work? How do they move water? And what about that governs the height a tree can attain?